Obviously, we know we got the quarterback. We feel like we got the skill, around him.
You heard it from Doug Peterson. No argument there. The Jaguars obviously have the quarterback. Welcome into Teal, the show. I'm Jamal Saints here alongside Frank Frangie. Frank, expectations are high for the Jaguars this season, and one thing that all of Duval can rest assured in is that they have the quarterback. Now, when I heard Doug Peterson say that the first time, the first thing that popped in my head was, okay, well, we know you got Trevor. How many other positions do you know you have the guy at? Frank, how many positions do you think around this team that they have the guy?
I think it's a good roster. I don't think there's any question, Jamal. This is a very good roster. Nobody would debate that. I think they've got potentially elite players at all the offensive skill spots, and I think that, all of those. I like what they're doing at tackle, whether it's Cam Robinson when he comes back or Walker Little. And obviously Anton Harrison's got a chance to be a really good player. I think offensively they've got the guy everywhere. The one question we're all going to have is some spots in the secondary. Do they have the right guy at nickel yet? Do they have the right guy at outside corner opposite Tyson Campbell? And can they find a pass rush? The same things we've been talking about. But when all three of those are, now Devon Hamilton's down for a while, but when all three defensive linemen are there, they've got the guy. So I think it's a good roster. I don't think there's many holes on this roster, particularly in those starting 22 spots. I really don't.
All right, you took us to our next point, Frank. Devon Hamilton.
Yeah.
Big guy, number 52. Maybe doesn't get as much love from the fans for the dirty work he does down there. He's going to miss some time. He was sidelined with a non-football back injury. Right. Now he's on the Jaguars injured reserve list. That means he's going to miss at a minimum the first month of the season before he can return from that injured reserve list. Frank, replacing him is going to kind of be a team effort. A couple of guys are going to have their hands full trying to fill the role that number 52 does so well.
Yeah, no question. He's a really good player, and he had a really good camp. Devon Hamilton's a good guy, man. We hate this for him. You hate it for the team, and you can't wait till he gets back, and hopefully sometime he gets back after those 4 games. But, yeah, I think Foley Fatukasi is going to be healthy now, can move inside some. I think Adam Gotsis is going to be a factor in there. They like Lacey, the rookie. I think but it is guys by committee. If there's one good thing, it's that a true nose guard is usually a 2-down guy. Now, Devon is such a good player that he was going to be in there. He's going to affect the pass rush, too, because he gets that push up the middle. But typically a nose guard, those 2-gap guys are 2-down guys, and you play an awful lot of nickel. But make no mistake, not having Devon Hamilton's a big deal. He's a very good player, just signed an extension, and I think most people can't wait for him to get back. That much is for sure.
All right, so now the Jaguars have officially wrapped up training camp. Preseason's over. We're 9 days away from the regular season. The teams made those roster cuts. There were a few surprises along the way. Nothing too wild or wonky, but I think one of the ones that may have caught some people off guard was the number of receivers they kept. I know I didn't have that on my list. Elijah Cooks is an incredible athlete. We've talked about him here on the show a couple of times, and now he's on the Jaguars roster.
I think the only real surprise was that Elijah Cooks on the team and Garrett Prince not on the team. I think those are that one move, the 7th receiver and only 3 tight ends. Elijah Cooks in, Garrett Prince out. Other than that, I think we probably could have guessed the 53 or gotten pretty close to it. And that means you have a pretty good team when there's not a lot of mystery. The thing with the receivers is this. We've all known that Jacob Harris and Seth Williams, who are both back here on the practice squad, and Elijah Cooks are pretty good players. They can all play in the NFL, so the Jags found a way to get one of those 3 on the active roster and protect him. That's the only surprise. Other than that, I think the roster and the cuts played out about the way we all thought they would.
Yeah, pretty close to it. Now, not too many surprises along the way, nothing too wonky. I think injuries probably would have been the hardest thing for any of us to see coming, but that's always the hardest thing. That's what Doug Peterson says every time we ask him, do you think you have enough to be an elite team? And he always responds back, it takes a little bit of luck to be a really good team in the hunt at the end of the year. So we'll have to see if luck is on the Jaguars' side, because coming up when Teal the Show returns, we'll start to look ahead to that Week 1 matchup with the Colts, which that's when the things really start to count. That's straight ahead on Teal the Show. Welcome back into Teal the Show. All right, we've reached the point in the season where it's time we can start talking about the real games. Right. We're not going to dive too far into it just because we still have a little bit of time before that Week 1 matchup, but let's start to kind of gloss over this Colts team. Rookie quarterback that I think a lot of people in our area are definitely familiar with. I know Frank is. Anthony Richardson. We've seen him here in the state of Florida. Right. We know what kind of threat he can be, but rookie quarterbacks in the NFL always bring some uncertainty?
I think the Colts are a rebuilding team, Jamal, and I think that's why he's playing. I think that's why Shane Steichen said almost right out of the gate he's our quarterback, because they're rebuilding. There's no Jonathan Taylor. You know that saga by now. Anthony Richardson's the quarterback. We all know that's the case by now. I think because they're rebuilding, they're not going to be good this year. They may surprise people and they may get to 6 wins instead of 3 wins or 7 wins instead of 4 wins, but they're not going to be a playoff caliber team, and I think they know that, and I think the Jags know that. The key is every game you can lose in the NFL. This isn't college football. You don't play the pay game like you do in college football. You can lose any of them, so be ready to play. But I think the Colts are a rebuilding team, and that's why they're playing a rookie quarterback right out of the gate.
All right, as a Gators guy, do you think Anthony Richardson is a good fit for the NFL?
I will be surprised if he winds up being a great player. I like Anthony. I think he's a really good guy, and I'd root for him if he wasn't in our division, right? Because I like he's a guy you root for.
Right.
He's a good guy. He really is. But I think he's limited. I think he's an inconsistent passer. I think in the NFL, you have to hit the easy pass 100% of the time. 100%, Jamal. You can't miss the swing pass. You can't miss the check down. Anthony misses a lot of swing passes and check downs. Now, he turns around and makes great plays. He's got a big arm. He's athletic. I don't know that he's consistent enough. Like I said, I'd be rooting for him. He's 4th pick overall, and the NFL knows more than I do. But he's been a wildly inconsistent player. Now, he hadn't played a lot. He's only started a handful of games, only 1 year as a starter in college. We'll have to see.
We'll keep an eye on Anthony Richardson. Hopefully one of those Colts wins this year doesn't come against the Jaguars. Now, the first game of the season right now is, of course, the most important one. Doug Peterson says that it can be a little bit of a tone setter because you always want to start that year off on the right foot.
This year's obviously very important, right? It's a division game and it's on the road, and you know, it's something, and we didn't fare too well down there, you know, last year. So, you know, yes, it's important to get off to a fast start, you know, to try to win that first game, obviously, and go play well, you know, and that's why you have a week of preparation to get the team ready to go, and you know, you just go down there with a lot of confidence and be ready for a good football team, you know, a good young football team, particularly on offense, with some of their skill and ability, and a big, strong, athletic quarterback. We saw in the preseason who's hard to tackle, you know, and so those are all the challenges that face us. And you know, but we worry about ourselves. We focus internally on us, get better every day, and go play.
You know, that's a little bit of coach speak.
Yeah,
they always want to go each week 1-0, and you always want to start the season on a right foot. But for a team like the Jaguars, so much momentum through the offseason, even though the season ended with a loss. How important would a win to start the year against a division opponent really be for their season?
Well, I think it's a critical game, and I think this for this reason. The coaches can't talk like this, but we can. The early part of the season has games that, at least to us, look in the media, look winnable. They play the Chiefs the second game. They're the world champions. That's the home game. But they play the Colts and the Texans and the Falcons all around that. So logic would say, and the odds would say, that the Jags are going to start at worst 3-1. But then the schedule gets tougher. So I think it's really critical they get off to a good start. And that's got to start with that first game, Jamal, because the Colts are a team that's rebuilding. I don't think there's any debating. The last thing you want to do is go up there and lose to a Colts team that doesn't expect to have a good year.
And when you have the defending world champions, a dominant team like the Chiefs in the second week of the season, the last thing you want to do is go into that game 0-1. You want to roll into that game with a little bit of momentum on your side, a little bit of extra confidence, because maybe you dominated someone in the first week of the season, because those are the types of little things that can kind of help to push you over the top in that game.
Yeah, it's funny. You never know how the NFL season is going to go. Doug Peterson gets here. It's clear from the get-go when he got here last year. He knows how to coach. He knows how to connect with players. Yet the season still started 3-7. And at 3-7, you thought, well, it's next year. And then they get hot. So you really never know how an NFL year is going to go.
And they want to avoid that sort of October that they had last year. October was the spooky month for them in the season. Here's the thing. We've talked a lot about this for the offense, Frank, starting fast. But can that carry over for just how they carry the season? I mean, we've seen the offense wanting to get out to these games, and they kind of had these big comebacks, which are fun to watch and great for us to talk about here on Teal the Show. But we'd like them to get a lead and hold on to the lead. Same thing goes for the season. You'd like them to start 3-1 and then just kind of cruise the rest of the way.
They've got a good team, Jamal. The key to this whole thing is they've got a good football team. They've probably got a better roster than a lot of the teams they're going to play. That wasn't always the case. So I'd be surprised. And one thing Doug Peterson teams, even before he was here, Doug Peterson teams usually don't mess up. they usually play at least as good as they are. Some teams get upset and then they pull upsets. Not the Doug Peterson teams. They're always organized. The culture's always good. They don't lay an egg very often. Usually if a Doug Peterson team loses, it's because the other guy was better. So I think they're going to get off to that good start. I really do.
I want you to dig through your memory banks here real quick. How many times covering this team have you been able to say the Jaguars have a better roster than the majority of the teams they're going to play?
Think about it. This is year 29, okay? This is year 29 they've had a team. I was thinking about that the other day. I think they probably had one of the better teams in the league maybe 5 of the times. Maybe 5, 6 at the most. Of the 29 years, as far as what I would call one of the better teams in the league, I would say maybe 5 times. Think about that. That's not very many.
It's not very many. That means you should enjoy this ride. It should be a fun season. It's going to be some bumps along the way, but enjoy every moment of it because years like this one don't come around very often, and they haven't come along very often in Jaguars history. So we'll be here all the way through it. Frank, thanks for being here tonight. Thank you at home for tuning in. Good night, everybody, and go Jags.